It is one of my favorite days of the year because, as you know, when you're there, there's just this energy that's just radiating through all the rooms.
The fact that it's actually free, I think, is a game changer because you're not limiting people from going.
That's like one of the main reasons why we felt so connected to you and Touched by Type 1, because it's community days. And that's really what we wanted to do here with Palmr.
They are focused on a cure for type 1 diabetes. Walked the halls, I've been in the labs, I've held the petri dishes, and it's very inspiring.
Hey Palmr fam, I'm Rebecca,
And I'm Nick.
and welcome back to another episode of The Urgent Lows, where we talk about lifestyle and type 1 diabetes.
Here, we believe in embracing self-care through life's challenges. We are back with Elizabeth from Touched by Type 1. This is part 2, so if you're watching this, go back and watch the first episode.
Yes.
There's a lot of great information, but we are very happy to have Elizabeth on here. Touched by Type 1 does so much stuff. One of the reasons why we love the organization, we are big fans and supporters of them. And so we want to have this episode kind of really focus on everything that you are doing. You are celebrating your 25th year, which is amazing, a huge accomplishment.
So amazing.
And so we talked on the last episode about Dancing for Diabetes, which is how everything got started. But another major thing that you do is a free diabetes conference every year. We've been for the last 2 years. Fantastic. The fact that it's actually free, I think, is a game changer because you're not limiting people from going. There's other conferences out there that are great, but you do have to pay for it. And so I don't know, maybe there's other free ones out there, but at least here, I haven't heard anybody else doing a free one. That is a big game changer. So it's amazing. A lot of great speakers. I know I've learned a lot. The kids,
Yeah.
one of the things I think I love is the fact that you have different rooms focused on different topics. So you have one for kids, one with adults with type 1 diabetes, one for caregivers, a Spanish one, all that. Man, it's amazing. So please, I guess, share a little bit more about the conference and what's going on. And
Yeah, the conference really came from the idea amongst some of the board members of wanting to create a space and a day of empowerment and education and really giving people the information and tools to live well with type 1 diabetes. You don't have to work harder at it to do well. You just really have to think it through and have the right information, and sort of the idea of work smarter, not harder. And so this conference has evolved over the last several years that we've had it. It is one of my favorite days of the year because, as you know, when you're there, there's just this energy that's just radiating through all the rooms, the ballroom, the exhibitor hall, registration. People are excited to be there. And I mean, everyone from mom and dad, kids with type 1, adults with type 1, siblings, everyone is excited. And like you said, we do have a track for all the different connections to Touched by Type 1. So we have the kids track, the teens, adults with type 1, caregivers. We also have a track completely in Spanish. So led by pediatric endocrinologists, adult endocrinologists, certified diabetes educators that are fully bilingual and can speak in English and Spanish to those in that community. That is so important to me because over all these years, I hear stories from adults with type 1 diabetes where growing up as a kid or a teen, they would go to their quarterly endocrinology appointment with their parents, and their parents didn't speak English. And so they're sitting there translating as a child, as a 10, 12-year-old, between the endocrinologist and the parent
Wow.
on how to keep them alive and how to handle highs and lows and how to handle dosing and school and field trips and sleep, all the things that are related to type 1. And it's just something I never thought about before because I've never been in that situation. And so to hear that story over and over from so many people, it just resonated with me that we had to do something about it. It was something we could easily put together with our resources. And so it's a really important track for me personally to be able to deliver that. I love seeing that room full of people. I have no idea what they're saying in there, but I love it. And that's just one piece of the day. But the idea really is that everyone comes into the conference and people travel in from all over the country. And this year we had people travel in from other countries.
Hmm.
So they, get their way to Orlando and then we host them for free that day from parking, lunch,
Mhm.
all the materials, the swag. I mean, there's nothing anyone does that day that costs them anything. And that's a huge piece of all the programs that we put on is we don't want there to be a barrier. There is information out there. There are tips and tricks and tools to thrive with type 1 diabetes. People should be able to get that information regardless of where they're coming from.
Mhm.
And so, yes, there's other groups out there that there's a cost, but for me, it's so important that the programming that we provide is at no cost. And
Yeah.
so I work really hard to make sure that we can have the resources and the funding to be able to continue to develop our programs and make them better every year and make them more people come out. Like this year, for going into 2025, we are going to be prepared to have 800 to 1,000 people at the conference this year,
Wow.
and it's going to be an incredible day.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a big difference from 2 years ago from the one from last year even, like, with the number of people there, the quality, everything. So, yeah, you're definitely improving every year
Yeah.
from just the 2 years that we've been at it. So
Yeah.
we're excited to go again this year.
And what I think is amazing, I think it's important to bring up is the fact that the first year that we went, Nick was like, "Oh, there's different sessions, like breakout sessions, like the kids go to one, like you really hone in on like trying not to have the parents go in with the kids and have the parents go into their own sessions." And I looked at Nick and I'm like, "Well, how's that going to work?" Like there's still diabetes, and it's amazing. I want you to talk a little bit because you also do it for Dancing with Diabetes, where you guys have all the kids' numbers for Dancing with Diabetes on the screen, and you guys are monitoring the blood sugar numbers.
Absolutely, yeah. So for me, it's always important at the base of what we do that when we're working with kids, teens, and even adults with type 1, that diabetes comes first.
Mhm.
And so we have things in place to make sure that everyone can do all the things and we can still be safe and proactive. So we have volunteer nurses in all the sessions that there are people with diabetes around so that if something happens, they're there. Our team and our volunteers are all trained on what to do in different emergency situations. They're aware of what to look out for. We also have sort of parents that have kids with type 1 that have had it for a long time that are sort of in the rooms and in the spaces that
Mhm.
know what they're doing so that if a parent is needed, they're not far.
Yeah.
So we try to think through it pretty heavily because we want the kid or the teen to enjoy that session and get the most out of it and also so mom and dad can be in the room next door getting the most out of that session.
Yeah.
So if everyone can sort of put diabetes on the back burner for the hour and just absorb the really great information, that's a win.
Mm.
And so if we have the tools and the resources and the people there to be able to do that, it's just such a great experience for everyone involved. And then to talk about what you're mentioning, the technology. So we have um, there's a great product out there that is really for camps. That's how it was designed, and it's Views EMR. And basically, the kids are registered. It goes through their Dexcom, so you have to be on a Dexcom in order to use it. And they're working on the other products out there as well. But if you're registered with a Dexcom, I can see all 50 kids, all 100 kids on an iPad on the screen that we Chromecast it to.
Mhm.
And I can see all their current blood sugars in this moment, as well as if they're going up, if they're going down. It's color coded. So the most critical are at the top. Those that are sort of in range are kind of at the bottom. So bringing who's really more urgent to our minds first.
Mhm.
And it's a great way to be able to manage 50 plus kids at any moment with type 1 diabetes and make decisions on lows, on snacks, on insulin, whatever it might be. But it gives the parents that reassurance that yes, they definitely know what they're doing, and they can see it at a high level of where everyone is at. We still do finger checks, because not every child or teen is on a CGM, and not everyone's on a Dexcom, but we have some really great tools at our disposal to be able to use.
Yeah, and I think it's so special, especially for, like, caregivers like us, There is not many situations when we have the kids where we're like, "Oh, okay, we can put type 1 diabetes in the back burner and we know someone else is handling it for us, you know? And it's so special to go in and be like, no, they actually got it. They're prepared. They know what they're doing. Like, they're in such good hands. But I did see for Dancing with the Diabetes, like when you were talking about the prep for the actual performance, how much you honed in on like, we got it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is your time to trust in us that we got it, because I can just see and or imagine where parents want to be like in the back with them and right next to their child and hone in on all of
Yeah,
it.
and I like to remind everyone, you drop your kids off at school, they take the bus, whatever, but they go to school during the day and you're not there with them, and we are more prepared and more knowledgeable about type
Yeah.
1 diabetes, and we have tools in place to really monitor it very closely. So I always say, "I've got this." 25 years myself, if we add up all the experience in the room, we're good, and that doesn't even include the medical experts we have on our team, so we've got this, yeah.
Yeah.
Our daughter Evie this year did the free Dancing for Diabetes class that leads up to the giant performance.
Mhm.
Evie was not able to do the performance, but it was amazing class.
Mhm.
Evie absolutely loved it. Like, she can't wait for next year again.
Mhm.
She just had a blast, something she looked forward to. Tell us a little bit about this class for people who aren't familiar, and just the, I said you were already sharing about how like we could drop Evie off. I stayed when because it was a far drive for me, so I just hung out. But you had everything under control. I saw the screen, all that type of stuff, and it was just so great. I mean, she had such a great time
Yeah.
with the class this year.
She really did. So the idea behind the dance class was to have create an environment where kids and teens could be around other kids and teens that also have type 1 diabetes. Growing up, I didn't know anyone with type 1 diabetes. I didn't meet someone till later on. And to have that experience and that bond and sort of that friendship that can start is really important for someone with diabetes, and to build onto their network and their community, someone they can lean on, things like that. It's also just really neat to sit in a room, sit at a table, sit on the floor, and you don't have to explain things and you just sort of get it. Like,
Yeah.
there's just things you don't have to say, or there's so many, obviously, every class there's beeps and alarms going off. No one's asking, what is that? It's more of, okay, who was that? So I can help you because there are so many. But the idea was just bring these kids together and let them have fun. Let them be kids for an hour and a half every Saturday in the fall. And the other neat side of that is that we have a physical location. We have a physical dance studio in Altamont Springs, just north of Orlando. And with that, we also host the class virtually. So we have kids and teens every year join us that live in other states, live in other countries, and they tune in on Saturday and they take part. And yes, it's not the exact same of being in the room, but we do take time for the kids to sit down, share their name, share their story, their likes, things related to diabetes, not related to diabetes, and just sort of have this bond with one another.
Mhm.
And then some of those kids come in for the show, and some tune in and watch live with those not in Florida. But the other piece of the program is that while those that are in the physical dance studio are dancing and learning and having fun, on the other side of that wall, the caregivers can stay. Some drop off and like, I can go to Target for an hour, kid free. This is great. And that's fine. And we encourage that. Like, you don't have to be here. We've got this, right? But for those that want to stay and can stay, we have great conversations and we have great connections that happen. And sometimes we bring in some guests to speak on different topics that are relevant to those in the room. Sometimes we bring coffee in to further the
Mm.
conversation. Sometimes we just ask those in the room to help stuff bags or for whatever event's going on. And sometimes we just are hanging out. But it's a great space, intentionally designed to have there be that environment that caregivers, those connected, those touched to by type 1, to have that space to be able to talk about diabetes. What works? What does it? What are you doing for this scenario? Who are you seeing? How are you handling all these topics? And for a lot of the scenarios, these caregivers don't have other connections or other contacts where they can ask those questions or build those relationships. And while I've seen the kids in the program develop these friendships and relationships over all these years, I see the parents doing the same thing. And that's really cool to see these communities just sort of come on their own and develop and really go really far. You know, obviously we're bringing these people together, but they're continuing the conversations beyond that one class and beyond that one season. So
Yeah.
that's really neat to see.
Yeah. And I think for us, that's like one of the main reasons why we felt so connected to you and Touched by Type 1 because it's community based. And that's really what we wanted to do here with Palmer to grow a community. It's not hiding the fact that you have type 1 diabetes. If anything, we're embracing that we have type 1 diabetes and we're proud of it, but also being real of like it's challenging. It's challenging for everyone involved. So, really having a safe place where you can come in and feel free and feel like, wow, that person knows everything I'm going through. Like
Yeah.
they've been through it, they're going through it. So that's really like, it was so special when we met you and you started like explaining everything you did. And we were like, oh my God, we love this. Like we love everything about it because actually we met you first.
Yeah.
And then the idea of Palmer came after that. And immediately our heads went to Elizabeth and Touched by Type 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know for Evie, when she did the dance class, especially that first one, she couldn't really comprehend the fact that every single
Yeah.
girl
Yeah.
in that class had type 1 diabetes.
Yeah. And boys too. Boys.
And there
have
was
to. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, she was just blown away, and she's like, "Wait, they're all like me,"
Yes.
and it was just an amazing kind of experience to see her like process that and be like,
Mhm.
"Oh,
And even such a weight off the shoulder, like on the mental load of, okay, everyone in here is like me. That there's just something about that you can describe, but you also can't at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a unique opportunity. And I'm so happy for our kids and our teens that have this experience. This program doesn't exist anywhere else. And so proud of what it does.
And the confidence that Evie got, like, after it was, like, unmatched. And it was funny because Parker, we were like, "Hey, do you wanna do it?" Because he loves dancing, which only to us, I guess he loves dancing. He doesn't like to do it for a crowd. But he was like, "There's no way I'm gonna do it." Like, whatever. And then so when we would drop off Evie, we would kinda all come as a family, and
Yeah.
Parker would be there a lot of times. And I felt like he kinda sounded, like, jealous, like, seeing Evie come out of there and being so happy and, like, having this confidence, like, I feel like he was like, like, happy for her, but also like, I wonder if I could meet someone with, like, type 1 diabetes too, and
yeah."
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just awesome. I mean, the confidence that Evie built during that and the realization was, I think, unmatched.
Yeah.
Right?
And then to talk a little bit more back about the conference, so can you talk a little bit, is type 1 diabetes more common in a demographic of Hispanics? Is that a thing?
So diabetes is
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
prevalent in minority groups, absolutely. Type 1 diabetes does not discriminate, absolutely, amongst really any age, background, ethnicity.
Unfortunately, it's the one thing that doesn't discriminate.
And so you see people from all walks of life being diagnosed. Um, what you don't always see is access to information to thrive with type 1 to all demographics.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we're really big on is making sure that if you need information on type 1 diabetes, wherever you're coming from, wherever you are, we're going to get it to you.
Yeah, so this year's conference was the first year my parents went,
Mhm.
and we're 100% Cuban, and they went into the breakout sessions for that was strictly all in Spanish, and they came back and were so pumped. They
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yes, they loved it. They, like, became best friends with the doctor that was speaking and, like, hung out afterwards with him because both my parents have type 2 diabetes, and my grandmother, who I never got to meet on my dad's side, passed away early on from diabetes, like, in her 50s from it.
Yeah.
Because by the time they realized what she had, it was just too far gone. But, yes, they were so excited and just, like, they were telling me, like, how knowledgeable the doctor was and just, like, the vibe in the room because both my parents are fluent in English as well, but they just loved having that opportunity and kinda what you've touched on before. There's so many people, especially in our community of Central Florida, that don't speak English and are newly here and they're learning how to speak English, but it's still such a, like, scary thing to take on. And then you add in another language and then you add in a diagnosis like type 1 diabetes, like that would rock anyone's
I mean,
world.
think about when the kids were diagnosed. I'm sure you didn't know what a basal rate was, what a
Mm.
bolus was, what uh, none of the terms. It's all foreign to all of us,
Mhm.
right? And then you add that language barrier too. So
Right.
I can't even imagine what someone would go through if they were having to work with a medical team that they weren't speaking the same language.
Yeah, so it's awesome that you do that. Like it's so special, even for my little human side. I love it.
Yeah, it's so important to what we do.
And you during the free dance class, you actually had a doctor one of the days come and speak with all of the parents.
Mhm.
It was amazing. Some of the stuff, his name was Dr. Yang,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Dr. Yang Kam. And he honestly blew my mind because he was really talking about like the research that's going on and the statistics and all the very fascinating things. And
Mhm.
I know it blew us when we talked a little bit about some of the stats that he talked about.
It blew our mind. And
It
we
really
talked
did
about it
blow
before.
our mind, and so it was amazing that you were bringing in people. So,
Mhm.
well, the kids are all having fun dancing, you're bringing in to support the caregivers.
Yeah.
So, we absolutely love that part, and obviously, one of the things that besides all the free community events that you're doing, you do give back to research with the organization in Miami?
Yes. Yeah, the Diabetes Research Institute.
Yes.
Mhm.
But what are you hearing right now? Because you're obviously very connected. When it
Mhm.
comes to research, finding a cure, how are you kind of viewing all that right now?
Yeah, so there is so much activity in the diabetes space right now, and there has been for a while. And so it's very positive and it's promising, and we're all hopeful. There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of different studies, and what's really inspiring, especially about the Diabetes Research Institute, is they work collaboratively. So they work with researchers and scientists all over the globe that are working on different projects, and they're sharing data and results with one another regardless of what project they're working on, because they're all focused on a biological cure for type 1 diabetes. So might as well share their findings and learn from it. And so they're working, as are many other great organizations and institutions throughout the US and beyond, on a cure for type 1 diabetes. And so I remain hopeful and I remain positive, and I just really connected many years ago with the Diabetes Research Institute, what they're doing and what their mission is. My thought has always been, I can bring people together. I can produce programs, events. I can distribute information and resources. And the one thing I cannot do is I cannot go into the lab myself and find that cure and give it to everyone.
Mhm.
And so I needed to find the right team that is solely focused on that and nothing else.
Mhm.
They're not out there doing other events or programs. They are focused on a cure for type 1 diabetes,
Mhm.
and they just so happen to be a drive away down in Miami. Amazing people. I've walked the halls, I've been in the labs, I've held the petri dishes, and it's very inspiring. I'll have to bring you both down there next time we do it. An incredible team over there, and they're also passionate, and they all have connections to type 1, and they come from all over the world and have such experience and knowledge in the diabetes world. So there are other groups out there that also are inspiring,
Mhm.
but the work the DRI is doing just has me so hopeful.
That's
Right. That's
amazing.
amazing because we do talk about, we sadly get a lot of comments on social media about, oh, this is a lost cause. They're never going to find a cure. And our response back to them is like, well, we're going to stay strong and hopeful
Yeah,
for our kids because that's all we can do, right?
absolutely.
You can get very political on like, oh, are they ever going to do it? Big pharma and all that. And listen, if that's what you want to believe in, fine. But for us,
And maybe refrain from our comments.
yes. But for us, like, we wanna believe
Yeah.
that they will
Want that
find
hope.
that cure and
Yeah.
have that hope, and
Mhm.
I know one of the things that has been really fascinating is the research seems to be very strong right now when it comes to more of the preventative. If
Mhm.
they can catch it before the, I guess, pancreas dies,
Mhm.
they might be able to stop that, and I know that's where the research is very strong right now, so I'm personally excited. Obviously, that won't help our kids or you, but if there's a way to stop future people from getting it, I mean, that's a game changer
Right.
as it already
Yeah,
is.
there's a lot of emphasis over the last few years on early prevention and screening.
Mhm.
And there's great groups out there that are leading that charge and doing great work. And yes, we're seeing more instances of individuals being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but we also have more tools and resources than we've ever had to live well with type 1. And when you are able to catch it early on, per se, you can help to eliminate or minimize that traumatic experience of DKA or a
Mhm.
diagnosis in the hospital and all the trauma that goes with that. And so there's a lot of good that can come from screening and testing and finding out if those you love, those you're connected to, have the ability to develop type 1 in their lifetime and then make decisions from that. But there's so much information out there and a lot of good work being done.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to do a future episode where maybe we have you back. Maybe we can bring one of the researchers or a doctor who's very knowledgeable and talk about all this amazing research
Yeah,
going on because that can fill up the entire hour easily
absolutely.
alone. So I'm really
So we've
excited.
talked about Dancing for Diabetes. We talked about the annual conference. So talk to us a little bit about your D box, which is so special to us, and what goes into that.
So one of our board members, Michelle, she really was the brains of this project, and she describes it as a hug, and it absolutely is. So the D box is a special program of ours. It is shipped to anyone that requests one in the US and Puerto Rico that has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in the last 12 months, and we're very flexible with that too.
Mhm.
Side note, we've had so many requests from those diagnosed beyond the 12 months and at an international level that we do have an electronic D box available too. So you can request that online. It's a PDF document with all the information in it. You just don't get the physical items, but the information is there, which is really great. And we also have it in Spanish, of course, and and additional languages to come. But the D box itself is just such a hopeful material. So when someone is diagnosed, depending on where they're diagnosed, how they're diagnosed, they can get different information, for better or for worse. We are in the world we live in, but information isn't always the same. And so the box can help us streamline that. And so wherever you are in the US and Puerto Rico, the box arrives at your home at no cost to you. The organization absorbs the postage and the production costs and everything. The box arrives at your home, and when you open it up, the first thing you see is a card that says you are not alone, because you're not. There is a community here. There are many communities in the diabetes world. And so we're all here for whenever you need us. It might not be now. It might be a year from now. It could be years from now. Who knows? But knowing that there is a group out there that can help you and be there for you and encourage you, I think is also really powerful. So once you get through that initial welcome, there's so much. There's information, there's resources, there's samples, there's fun things in there, there's
Mhm.
swag. But it's anything from how to get access to affordable insulin, to summer camp information, the mental health load of type 1 diabetes and how to navigate that, nutrition. Uh, all areas that are impacted by type 1 diabetes are addressed in the box. And so the idea is that it's there when you need it. You might not need it all right there day one, but it's there when you need it. It's there as a resource, and there's a way to connect online to other resources as well. But the box comes in three versions. There's a kid box, an adult box, and a box completely in Spanish, of course. And so depending on what you request, the box shows up within a few weeks and off you go. And then you stay connected to the organization. And we wish you happy diversaries and stay connected and invite those that are receiving the box to all of our events and programs, whether it be in person or virtually too. But it's just such a wonderful item to receive.
And a little plug, you might find the little Palmer goodies in there too.
Absolutely.
Yes. And you have shipped out over 12,000 of these boxes,
We have.
which is amazing. You actually have one right here
Yes.
that you can show people the
Yes.
box and everything. So they have an idea of what it kind of looks like and everything. And so there is a lot of goodies
The
in it. And so,
fun
ooh,
stuff.
sunglasses. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just a great little thing that everybody gets. And,
All kinds of great information and really resources and who to connect with. And I keep showing the back of things. Um, it's really nice because when you are diagnosed, you don't always get these. Oh, this is one of my favorite things actually. So if you have kids, and you do have a babysitter or a family member that can come babysit for a date night, this lives on the refrigerator and it has like all the basic information of if an emergency happens and doctor's number, name, pharmacy number, what a low blood sugar is, symptoms to look out for, and it just lives on your refrigerator whenever you're able to escape.
Yeah.
And thanks to Elizabeth, we do have babysitters
Yeah.
that we can choose from for type 1 diabetes, which is so amazing because it's just game changer. Like,
Yeah.
it's game changer knowing, like, you have, like, someone there that knows exactly what they're going through because they also have type 1 diabetes. And then, Bella, the girl you introduced us to, she has a special place in our heart, and she's one of our models. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they always say it takes a village to raise a family, right? But it absolutely does with type 1 diabetes.
I've talked on the podcast before that the biggest, I would say, thing I wish I did differently after my son was diagnosed is I did not actually get involved with the type 1 community. I only knew one person because somebody, when they found out my son was diagnosed, said, "Oh, here's somebody who also has a daughter who has type 1 diabetes." But I only knew one person. I'd never got involved into the community. I never met a whole bunch of people. And so that's something I wish I did differently. And my son's now going on 10 years having it. So it's really only been in the last few years that we started getting involved, meeting people. But like you said, you are all about bringing the community together. And so we've met so many amazing parents,
Mhm.
other kids, and just be able to really connect. And I said, it's that support system.
like, I feel like they're part of our family. Like,
Yeah.
once you meet them and you start sharing stories, like, even my mom, one day we had a photo shoot and Bella was there and her mom was there. And I guess my mom and Bella's mom were talking, and she was just crazy stories that because Bella has a sibling, a sister who also has type 1 diabetes. So very similar to Parker and Evie with us. But, they had a lot of difficult times where, like, a lot of 911 calls at night and stuff like that. And my mom was so touched by these stories and, like, came up to me afterwards and was like, "Her story is so amazing and so inspiring." So, it's just amazing, like, meeting everybody, and you really build a relationship, like, that's so different because it's so personal and just it's something you'll have with you forever.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And we've really been encouraging people that even if you're not in Orlando, it's like get involved with your local community and meet people, especially after there is a diagnosis, because in that first year, it's very scary. You don't know what you're doing, and you need to have that support system for with wherever you're at, that you have parents that you can call and connect and cry to
Mhm.
because they've been through all of it. Because at the end of the day, unless you've been through this, people don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's why we always encourage people, like, get involved. That's why I wish I would have done it from the beginning, looking back.
Yeah.
And so please get involved with things. If you're in Orlando, obviously Touched by Type 1 is doing amazing things. If you're not, I'm sure there's other organizations out there. Google it, I guess, look on social media, but it is so important. And, you've done, we've already talked about so much you've already done. Everything's free. You do all these other free events throughout the year. You've done bowling, you've done skating. I mean, it's amazing.
Gonna have a walk
You
this
have a walk
summer.
coming up,
Wow.
all those type of things that we can talk about. It's just a great time getting together with other similar people.
Mhm.
We did the skating event earlier. I guess it was last year at this point. The kids had a blast.
Yeah, and I brought my nephews.
Nephews,
So fun. Yeah.
family all came, and it was just a great time. And we filmed a lot of content while we were there because we wanted to show off and let's see kids all doing it. And it's so funny because one of our videos we did is actually our second highest video
Yeah.
views that we have on Instagram. And so we actually turned into
An ad.
an ad because people loved it, and it's showing Evie dancing at the skating rink and all that type of stuff. And something's come up from it.
Well, you watched our previous episode 2 episodes ago. This is what we like to call Icy Gate.
Icy game.
And this is where this whole icy thing came into play because Once we turned the video into an ad, it obviously got a lot of more views and eyes on it, and people just felt compelled to write to it because they see type 1 diabetes. So like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, when you think of diabetes, a lot of people think of type 2 diabetes, which is, overall life choices you have made and has impacted your life now. Very different in type 1 diabetes. When a person is viewing and doesn't know the difference between type 1 and type 2, and then they see the child having an ice seat, we've gotten called dumb. We've gotten called that we just use the icy as a prop and, we're just getting it or we're using it for more views and then to like hone in and then like engage you. And then, we have this whole market for diabetes clothing. Like, why is there a whole market for it? Like, we are just horrible people. And especially that icy, it's just horrible.
Hmm.
So, can you talk a little bit about how, in our case, Evie was skating around and around and around, and she was going low. And there was ices that were being given and that you could purchase there. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it was to set the record straight. When you have type 1 diabetes, there is nothing you did to cause that diabetes. You didn't eat or drink anything. And at the same token, because you have type 1 diabetes, it doesn't mean you can't eat or drink anything in particular. So I can't tell you the last time I ever had sugar-free anything. I don't eat or drink sugar-free anything.
Mm-hmm.
I eat and drink the same things that everyone at this table eats and drinks. And so I do have a gluten allergy, so maybe not everything, but there is nothing you cannot do with type 1 diabetes. You monitor your blood sugar, you take the appropriate amount of insulin based on what you're consuming, and just like anyone, regardless of having type 1 diabetes, you eat in moderation because
Mm-hmm.
that is what is expected and that is what is the right thing to do to just be healthy overall.
Yeah.
I can eat a piece of pizza just like you. I can have a salad. I can have an icy. I can have a candy bar. It's all about moderation and timing. If my blood sugar is high right now, I'm not going to have a candy bar right now.
Yeah.
But if my blood sugar is low right now, what a great opportunity to have a Gatorade or some Skittles or an icy.
Yeah.
So it's all about just helping spread information so people become better aware. When those things happen in life, I always say to myself, got more work to do.
Yeah.
Because not enough people know about type 1 diabetes. They don't understand the complexities of it. It's incredibly misunderstood. It's an invisible disease. And unless you're in it, you really don't understand it.
Yeah. And then we explained on our previous episode that I didn't even get time to comment back to that response. And I had all these T1D mamas coming out and like educating her and writing back about the difference between type 1 and type 2 and how you don't even know that could have been the low saving snack that saved your life. And so it's just so amazing. But again, like you've mentioned in these episodes, it's what you're doing is building that community. And that showed me I'm proud of what we're doing with Palmer in this community because we have enough members of the community that are seeing our stuff and feel comfortable to be like, no, we're going to respond to this. Like, this is somebody that is probably not knows or has seen our stuff and involved in it. But, it's just that like common thing that you have. And family like myself, I came in as a stepmom not having any idea about type 1 diabetes. I knew about type 2 diabetes because it's in my family. But there is so much that you can explain to someone versus actually living with it and going through everyday life with it. So, like for me, for example, being a caregiver of it, it's very different than what I can explain to my mom. I can explain to her, oh, we had a really bad night. Like we were up all night because the kids were high or low, whatever the case may be. And of course, she feels bad that we had a horrible night of sleep, but it's like you don't really feel that like exhaustion and like what else goes into it because it's like they have type 1 diabetes, but life still goes on.
Yeah.
So one of the brand new events you're doing this year, it's coming up in March, is you're doing your first walk. Tell us about it. We're excited. We're going to try to get a team together as
Yep.
well. Tell us about the new walk.
Yeah, so Steps to a Cure, March 8th at Lake Eola here in Orlando. And it will be a walk around Lake Eola, a beautiful day to bring out the community, family, friends, those touched by type 1, those not, and just have a really fun day together and support those people with type 1 diabetes that we love, and be active and enjoy the day and spread awareness about type 1 diabetes, and hopefully a few dollars in the process too. I'm so excited.
That's amazing. So, man, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a blessing we have met you. We're so grateful for you and everything you're doing. It's so amazing.
Definitely. So, can you just, as closing, tell people how they can find out more information, donate, get involved, anything like that?
Yeah, so touchedbytype1.org is where you can find anything and everything related to what we do. You can sign up to volunteer with us, participate in any of our programs, and just learn more. There's a lot of information and education on our website as well. And then, of course, if you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, X, other places, it's usually just Touched by Type 1. So find us, connect with us, and become part of our community.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being here. Thank you for everything you do. We're so appreciative of you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, Palmr fam.
Bye.